Good evening. My senior research project tested the effect of attire on ability to receive assistance. Before I begin explaining my project, I'd first like to introduce myself. My name is Zachary Payne, and I attend Tunstall High School. In the fall, I'll be attending the University of Virginia to pursue a career in dentistry. After thinking over what I wanted my topic to be, I ultimately chose this project because I actually don't like dressing up. I tend to dress for comfort, which does not coincide with formal attire. This led me to wonder if clothing makes a difference in a given situation. The results of this study will be useful because attire is worn by everyone everywhere. Opinions are formed instinctively between individuals. Therefore, knowing the best type of clothing can lead to more beneficial outcomes. Before looking further into my own study, I first had to conduct research on information needed to understand how individuals interact with one another. This process is known as social processing. It is this interaction between individuals that makes attire a key factor in perceptions that are drawn. A study by Lynn et al. Found that people make impactful perceptions about others within the first few seconds of meeting them. A level of trust is also formed between individuals in similar levels of attire. Conducting research also led me to discover other favorable attributes besides clothing that can lead to more beneficial perceptions. A study by Carvalho et al. Found that physical attractiveness had a significant effect on perceptions that are drawn. Those who are better looking were perceived in a better manner. Grooming and neatness is another area that people base their perceptions off of. A study by Rutzler et al. Found that individuals view grooming as an essential part of perceptions of competence, which is one's ability to do a job successfully. Additional research has also found that tattoos and piercings are perceived as unprofessional in the workplace. Negative perceptions were formed of people who had excessive tattoos or piercings. The last area of my literature review focuses on other communication factors that can influence perceptions. The communication accommodation theory, or CAT, is similar to social processing, but it takes into account both verbal and nonverbal signals that are exchanged in conversation between people. The main takeaway from a study conducted by Morgan et al. Is that adaptation is key in maintaining a comfortable environment. Adaptation involves mimicking the behavior of the other person in order to prevent awkwardness during a conversation. Factors that lead to more positive interaction include smiling, keeping an appropriate level of eye contact, and maintaining a respectful tone of voice. However, this study was in an interview-based setting with one-on-one meetings. No studies have looked at the adaptation aspect in the context of a quick public interaction, highlighting a gap in the literature that my study aimed to fill. After conducting my literature review, I was then able to develop a research question, which reads, how does attire affect one's ability to receive assistance? I developed my hypotheses before beginning my data collection. My research hypothesis states that if an individual was in formal attire, that they would be more likely to receive assistance from strangers. My null hypothesis states that if an individual was in formal attire, then there will be no difference from an individual who is in casual attire. There were multiple variables that I identified as a part of my experiment. The independent variable was the type of attire, whether that be formal or casual. The dependent variable was the participation by strangers in completing a survey, a simple yes or no response. The control was the casual attire, and the constants that remained the same throughout were the survey questions and the way I approached each individual. The materials used for my experiment include the formal and casual outfit, a survey, pen, and clipboard. In total, my sample size was 240, and the sample population consisted of Danville shoppers. Before beginning my experiment, I first had to obtain permission from both Piedmont Governor School and Pennsylvania County Schools. After having my topic approved, I gathered the materials needed for my data collection. I then had to determine my formal and casual attire. For formal, I decided on a black suit, white dress shirt, black pants, black shoes, and a black bow tie. And for casual, I decided on a white t-shirt, jeans, and black tennis shoes. Next, I created a survey that I'd be asking the strangers to complete. This was how I was measuring the assistance aspect of my research question. I had to create a realistic survey that was long enough to where individuals would have to stop and take the time to do it, but not overly difficult to where they'd be overwhelmed. Included on the right side of the screen is an image of the front page of the survey. I chose the topic to be shopping to match the context of the situation. The survey itself was 15 questions asking the individual to rate their level of agreement with the given scenario related to the shopping experience. After creating the survey, I then had to decide where to conduct my research. I chose two locations, the Danville Mall and Target, I also conducted research on both weekends and weekdays, all of which to create a more random and representative sample. Once all these planning steps were complete, I then began to develop my procedure for data collection. I first had to approach the individual and ask them to fill out the survey. I used a consistent approach with each person, while also making sure to apply the aspects of adaptation that I researched by smiling, making eye contact, and maintaining a respectful tone. The participation was then recorded in a dialogue. After it was clear whether or not the individual had chosen to participate, I then debriefed the person and answered any questions. Individuals filled out a debrief form, giving me their consent to have their response included. Following all data collection, I compiled the raw data and began conducting a statistical analysis. To analyze my data, I conducted a binomial test, and I found that at the significance level of 0.05, the null hypothesis was rejected with a p-value of 0.0098. As I stated before, my total sample size was 240, and this table shows a breakdown of my results. I approached 120 strangers in formal attire and 120 in casual attire. For formal attire, 70 out of 120 people, or 58%, said yes to participating in the survey, while just 50 out of 120, or 42%, said yes when I was in casual attire. Since my p-value was below 0.05, I was then able to conclude through significant data that an individual is more likely to receive assistance from strangers when wearing formal attire. In terms of what my results mean and how they can be applied to the real world, the results extend the idea that formal attire is perceived as more beneficial in a public setting. The previous literature in Rutzler et al.'s study had acknowledged that formal attire was better perceived, but this was in an interview-based setting. This can now be extended to public interactions also. Additionally, since the exchange was very brief and involved strangers with no previous knowledge of what was going on, it further solidifies the idea that initial perceptions are made about what an individual wears, which is found in Morgan et al.'s study. Lastly, clothing matters, even if it's not recognized consciously. Much of the feedback that I received from participants was that their participation was based on my age, not based on what I was wearing, but the data suggests otherwise. People may not recognize the existence of this, but it's evident that social processing does exist. My study produced reliable results for two main reasons. Number one, I had a large sample size. Having reported results for 240 people allowed me to have more reliable data that was more similar to what the entire population would be. The second reason is that I addressed many factors that could have potentially influenced my sample, including location and time of week. By collecting data at a busier place like Target and a less busy place like the Danville Mall, on a combination of both weekends and weekdays, all led me to have a more representative sample, since a wider range of shoppers was able to be included. As I just mentioned, many lurking variables were addressed, but there are also other limitations that may have impacted the results of this study. There was a shooting in the Danville Mall back in November, a week prior to my data collection. This could have led to less people being in the mall, and those who were in the mall may have been more hesitant to talk to me. Next, I replicated to the best of my ability each interaction, but human error is still involved. No interaction was completely identical to the one before it. And lastly, the location included only individuals who shopped. Had I used a more public area like a park, I could have had a more variety of participants, but for my experiment, I needed a location that had a sufficient amount of people. The experimental process led me to come away with ideas as to how this study could be extended. Using a variety of testing locations could lead to an even more representative sample, as I mentioned. Also, extending the study to other cities could be interesting to see if these results would be the same as in Danville. Also, including age and gender as independent variables could be used to see if these factors influence participation. Overall, this process taught me the importance of time management in terms of meeting deadlines and minimizing procrastination. One thing that I took away from my topic specifically was that we need to be mindful of the perceptions that we make as humans based on clothing. In short, it's important to dress for success. There are various individuals who assisted me over this process who I'd like to point out. I'd like to thank Dr. Jones and Dr. Bocock for approving my research topic. I'd like to thank Ms. Long for her overall guidance and assistance and for making me an improved public speaker. I'd like to thank Ms. Gravitt for her assistance in conducting my statistical test. And I'd like to thank all participants who took the time to participate in my study. And at this time, I'll answer any questions.
I have glad he filled in, but I will limit it to one. Do you remember the year of the study, that you were talking about in the lit review, that was talking about excessive tattoos and piercings?
Ms. Davis is asking about the source that I found about the tattoos and piercings. That was actually a question that's been asked by some people in class, and so I do know that one. It's from 2012, and so as you're probably thinking, it could potentially mean that times have changed now, so it may be different now, but that was the source that I had, and that was the data I based it off at that time. Dr. Brown?
Do you think, did you only approach individuals? Did you approach anybody that was more than one person together, or was it just one individual? They were only by themselves?
So Dr. Brown is asking about my sampling approach. Basically what I did is it was a systematic approach, and so it was every third or fourth person. Basically I had to make sure that the person who I approached next didn't see me approaching the person before that. And so usually when they were in a group, I didn't ask multiple people unless they asked to participate. Then I wasn't gonna turn them away, but I didn't automatically ask them to participate. Yes, Ms. Burns?
And it could go for you and the participants. Were they all females that you approached?
Ms. Burns was asking about my sample population. The people, like I said, it was all random. So,
okay, so you don't
there was really no pattern significantly more females or males.
And were you the only researcher?
I was, yes.
Okay, do you think your results would be different if you had a female like co-researcher to ask the questions?
I definitely think it would be different. That could definitely be a call for further research.
Ask one more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was your line? When you walked up to them, I'm interested to hear your.
Dr. Brown.
I want to hear your pitch. Like, I want to hear what you. Yeah.
Essentially, what I did is, I would see somebody walk in, and I'd approach them and just be like, "Hey, can you fill out this survey for me?" I had a stack full of papers in my hand. I'm just walking in a suit or a t-shirt down Target or in the mall, and so, they see me and they smile, and most of them participated, but obviously there were some who said no and just kept walking on. But it was just a simple question like, "Do you mind filling out this survey for me?"
So I guess my follow-up then is, do you think there was a difference on the type of assistance you were requesting? So you requested assistance with filling out a survey. Do you think if you were requesting assistance with, like, I don't know, some other thing, do you think there would have been a difference? Or
Dr. Brown is asking about the way I was asking for assistance, or the type of assistance I was asking for. I definitely think it would vary depending on what I was looking for. I think a survey was, the main thing that the strangers would have to give up would be their time. And so to me, I wanted a good amount of people to participate, which is why I used the survey as my method to measure assistance. But definitely if I were to use other forms of ways to look for testing that assistance aspect, I think it would definitely be a variance in the amount of people